Well, good evening, everyone. I think we're on our 159th program. Oh, goodness, is it? Yes, 159th program, and we'll be doing reading number 99, and we're approximately on page 163, 164. I working from the book Glamour, A World Problem. I just want to kind of take a look at the two items that we ended with last time. And I will do that as soon as I'm just adjusting this headset a little bit. Welcome you. I don't know where the cutoff point really is, but I suppose when we have 40 or 50 people, I don't go through the list. But when we have, like we do today, 20 something, then yes. So I'm not sure someone's trying to come in, but it's some telephone number, I'm not sure. But hi, Annette and Carl. And Catherine, welcome. And Deborah. And Georgina, Gretchen, Jan, Jesse, and Jessica. Joan, Joanna, Johi, Karen, Leslie, Lorraine, Margot, Mariana, Marina, Martine, and Olivia, and Risto, Ivan, and Zenaidi. And we have our full group of facilitators here with BL, Joe, and Michael Stacy. So our subject is a familiar one. It's about manipulation. It seems that so often we are dealing in these present days between the misuse of power and the manipulation of people and circumstances. And what happens with that manipulation is that people do not have the chance to express their own will. They are somehow positioned in a way where their prerogatives to express their will, wishes, and desires are taken from them. A situation is engineered in which it becomes impossible for them to make their will known to others. So it's a theft in a way, with the third ray, theft is always a problem. And it's a theft of opportunity. So we'll be dealing with that because there's so much of it going on right now. It is a suppression, really, of the will, and it is the will of certain people that their own will triumph and other people's will is ignored, and thus they manipulate accordingly so that they negate the expression from others. And that has to be naturally that has to be subdued, and the crisis is on us right now. We have here some work that is being done, just to make a little segue, work being done by those who see the world stage as the arena for the conflict between the dweller on the threshold, humanity's dweller, that is, and the angel of the presence, relating to the soul of humanity. So they see the issues, and they see the necessary conflict, and they understand the conflict. What is this work they're doing? Well, they're producing those world conditions in which the forces of light can overcome the forces of evil, and they are also, number two, trying to educate humanity in certain fundamental distinctions: spirituality and materialism, sharing and greed, light and dark, fellowship and preparation, the whole and the part, and that is quite an educational task, no question about it. And many people will, because of their education up to a certain point and their stage of evolution, they will resist understanding the discrimination between these. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's just the level of evolution. But let's just say the more skillful the presentation of the issues, which also appeal to an idealism which can touch the less inclusive and knowledgeable types, the better will be the chance that the discriminations will be made before long, and maybe in time, we might say. Now, our next factor, point number 3, is to prepare the way for the 3 spiritual energies which will sweep humanity into an era of comprehension, leading to focused mental clarification of men's minds throughout the world. Well, that is we can understand in the people who are so subject to demagoguery that they're being hit in the emotions and they're not able really to think clearly. It's unfortunate, but that is the way it is at the moment. So, what are these energies that will sweep humanity? 3 spiritual energies. Sorry, this purple is so dark, but the bigger we make it, the easier it is to see. And, when the 7th ray is involved, I try to use that purple color. What are the 3 imminent energies? And I think one of the things I have to do is copy the bracket, Yeah, all right. 3 energies to sweep humanity into a clearer point of mental comprehension. And it can't come too soon, can it? I mean, because we do really see people reacting out of a very low level of consciousness, and one that is based on fear and on aggression and on simply ensuring that the desires will have their way. Now let's see if I can collapse the ribbon a little. That should help a bit. Okay, so what are the energies? The energy of the intuition, which will gradually dispel, that's the word we use when illusion is involved, world illusion, and produce automatically a great augmentation of the ranks of the initiates. The initiates are characterized by the ability to use the intuition, the focus, the home of which is in the spiritual triad. So it's not just the use of the mind. There has to be what Master Moria calls straight knowledge. And so this is one of the factors that's going to help people somehow think more clearly and not necessarily repeat the same mistakes which lead to and have led to so much distress over millennia and even millions of years. If we could only see what's coming, something about the 4th ray, which rules the intuition to a great measure, it oftentimes seems that people have to go through a kind of conflict and great friction before they really wake up. They have to experience the negative side first. Now, if it were only possible that they could anticipate the negativity in their consciousness and then no longer choose that which they see directly, will lead astray. But usually poor frustrated and bruised humanity has to go through the negative before it wakes up to the positive. Like, I'll never do that one again, you know. We somehow seem to have to put our hand on the stove before we decide that we'll never do it again. And maybe we could use that foresight, you might say. Sagittarius being part of the one of the intuitive signs, and having the foresight to see what will eventuate from any particular Libran choice, Libra Saturn, in the moment. This is what we must cultivate. Okay, the energy of the intuition will help humanity think more clearly. The activity of light, which will dissipate. Now, notice the first word was dispel. You know, might as well get these words straight. It's not always, but usually when the word illusion is used, the antidote is called dispelling. Now, when the word dissipation is used, it's the antidote to the glamour rather than the illusion. The activity of light, which will dissipate by the energy of illumination, the world glamour, and bring many thousands onto the path of discipleship. Now, is that the same as the path of probation? Maybe, you know. Or maybe he's saying that to make a real disciple out of a probationer, we have to dissipate glamour. And that, of course, is what we're trying to do. We work a lot with dissipation in this particular group. We work maybe not so much yet with dispelling illusion, but people of our type who, you know, are training the mind with Master DK should be in the position where we can work with dissipation, with dispelling, let's say. Dispel illusion through the intuition, dissipate glamour through the illumined mind. Maybe the dissipation uses the fifth ray more, and the dispelling, somehow the fourth ray is engaged. So, dissipate by the energy of illusion, the world glamour. Just getting a few words there that should stand out. And meanwhile, a number more people have joined us, and I won't go through the list, but I want to welcome you. Okay, and then the energy of inspiration. You know, that needs to be capitalized. There's another word too, dispersing, you know. Another word is dispersal. The energy of inspiration, which is used in the Mayavic field. The energy of inspiration, which will bring about through the medium of its sweeping potency, the devitalization. You know, because the etheric body is a source of vitality, so that when there is kind of a messy condition within the etheric body, that mess needs to be devitalized, or the removal as by wind. That, you know, gives us a good analogy of how this is done in the field of Maya. A removal as by wind of the attractive power of Maya, or substance. And this will release untold thousands onto the path of probation. So, in fact, we are talking about the average human being needing, who maybe aspires now and then, to be released onto the path of probation. And above, we're talking about releasing those who aspire and are on the path of probation onto the path of discipleship, with its more mental focus. And here we have an aspirational focus finally takes hold, and the person realizes that he or she is being tested. So what have we so far? Yet another method which is used in, what should we call it? Yes, we'll call it those who recognize that a battle is on. Do we so recognize? Between our own dweller and our own angel, and between the dweller and angel of our nation, and between the dweller and angel of humanity. Altogether, the battle is on. So what do we do to overcome the negative forces? How do we educate humanity in fundamental distinctions? And then there are three spiritual energies which will sweep humanity, not weep, I guess, sweep, sweep humanity into an era of comprehension leading to focused mental clarification. Now, we seem sometimes a long way off from those circumstances, but okay, it can happen. Clarification of men's minds. And the three energies are the energy of the intuition, which dispel illusion. Just get these fundamentals in our mind, right? The energy of the activity of light, which will dissipate through the power of illumination. Light and illumination dissipate the glamour, by far the worst of the problems, because that's the kind of planet we live on. We live on a planet that has a personality problem and has not yet taken the second cosmic initiation, and we even live in a solar system where emotion is tremendously emphasized, and so is the Deva kingdom over the human, more emphasized in our solar system, 2 1/3 times more. What do we have? We have 140 billion or milliard Devic units and 60 billion human units. So the Devic emphasis, and especially in the line of the Agnisurians, the emotional Devas, are the outstanding force. And that makes glamour much harder to overcome, and we really have to use the technique of light, in a way coming from Venus with its fifth ray soul, and symbolically the lightest of the planets with respect to visual magnitude as seen from the Earth. Not necessarily the most brilliant planet altogether, but certainly in terms of the Earth, the most brilliant. And like the Christ, the most rapid achiever of the planetary host, just as the Christ is the most rapid achiever of the human host. Okay, and then finally the dispersal, the inspiration, the devitalization, all of these words regarding the way to be rid of Maya. And he gives us techniques to help devitalize Maya. That's all part of the big glamour problem. And blow it away, you know, as it were. Blow the Maya away from the etheric body. Because there are conditions in the etheric body which definitely contribute to the blockage of higher energy, and they are impulsiveness, veil of impulsion, distortion, you know, exaggeration or minimization. That's the veil of distortion. And separation, that's another one of the veils. It's more of a mental effect within the realm of Maya. And finally, the veil of aspiration, where we aspire towards many things but do very little. Okay? So, three great energies contributing to the improvement of the uh, realization or the improvement of the effectiveness of the disciple in the great battle between the dweller and the angel. All right, now let's go on. There's a fourth point here. And this has to do with what will help the servers engage on the battlefield through enhanced service, releasing new life into the planet through the medium of every possible agency. New life. So, you know, obviously with the Aquarian age, there's going to be a new flow of energy which can be used in a positive, serviceable way. Remember how much Aquarius is connected with service. So the idea of the world server, new and new life go together. And the first step forward or towards this release of new energy into our planetary sphere is the proving that the power of materialism is broken. And see, when this is written, it's back in the 30s, by the complete defeat. Notice he emphasizes the word complete, unconditional surrender of the Axis powers, and secondly, by the ability of the United Nations to demonstrate, when this has been done, demonstrate the potency of spiritual values by their constructive undertakings to restore world order and to lay those foundations which will guarantee a better and more spiritual way of life. So two things are operative here, and can we apply them to the present day? I think the threat is once again with us, frankly, and the negative aspects of the personality are rearing their ugly heads, you know, the heads of the Hydra in a way, and we have to find a way towards defeating them and demonstrating a better way of living. So I want to emphasize the words complete defeat. We don't exactly have the axis at the present time, but we do have a triangle of evil, actually, DK points out, and that triangle of evil is anchored in the Middle East, in a point in Central Europe, undisclosed. He didn't necessarily say it's Germany or anything like that, and in the United States, and probably in the New York area, where it can be imagined that the Christ will work in close proximity to the United Nations. So all of this will help in that battle with the dweller. These new energies will come in, new life, and lead to the complete defeat now, let's just say, now of materialism and selfishness, and will also lead to constructive undertakings, which will demonstrate before the eyes of humanity spiritual values. So, demonstrating spiritual values. Spiritual. How about spelling, huh? All right. There we go. All right. So that's the fourth point. These constructive attitudes, and this is to us, he's speaking to us now. These constructive attitudes and undertakings must be assumed individually by every person and by nations as collective wholes. We must still show this. The Christ cannot return until constructive spiritual values in the form of sharing, in the form of peace, a reasonable amount of it, and in the form of ridding governments and churches of corruption. I mean, and that's certainly coming to the surface. But until those things are done, the Christ does not dare to return in person because of what the consequences would be in terms of overstimulation of unbanished negativities. So the constructive attitudes and undertakings must be assumed individually, and that's for us to take to heart, and by nations as collective wholes. The first is being undertaken at this time, and the second remains to be done. And we can certainly see when we look at most nations that the constructive attitudes show up now and then, but often with self-serving purposes, you know. So the people who do these things and the collectives who do these things feel that they will get more out of it even than they're putting into it. Just as he said, be careful about service because you know, the one who offers service may do so for the wrong motive and receives even a lot more of value from those who notice the service than those who are being served. So it's like a popularity contest, you know, who can serve the most, but what is the motive? All right, going further. A little bit further anyway. Let's see how many of these there are. Yeah, we have to consider these points. And obviously we're not going to be able to read through all of this at this time, but we are certainly making progress with the book because we seem to be, you know, so I think more than halfway through. Or something like that. So point number 5, bringing home to the nations of the world the truths taught by the Buddha, the Lord of Light, and the Christ, the Lord of Love. In this connection, it might be pointed out that, okay, and we're going to, now this is our teaching function, isn't it? He says bringing home, but how do we do it? We have to let people know what the Buddha and the Christ really did stand for, and not the fabrications around them, which, you know, have been watered down. The real thing has been watered down by the selfishness and the weakness of humanity. Okay, so bringing home to the nations of the world certain truths. And that we want to, certainly we try to do that in our thinking. That's the main thing, right? Even if we cannot reach people, but many of us can reach people in conversation, and we can reach them with some of our writings and things of that nature. But if we can't do that, we at least think clearly, because one person, we're told, one person thinking truth can have a great effect upon his or her own environment. So let us at least think the truth, and then it will find its way home to the people. It will be one of the avenues. They'll wonder where they got the thought, or when the thought presents itself to them, they will be more receptive to it. So, okay, in this connection of bringing home the truth, what about it? A, the Axis nations need to grasp the teaching of the Buddha as he enunciated it in the Four Noble Truths. Now that's interesting because, you know, we have the four freedoms that Franklin Roosevelt on the first ray enunciated, and then here's the Buddha on the second and third ray enunciating four noble truths. They need to realize that the cause of all sorrow and woe is desire. Well, it's a great cosmic principle, but in this case, it's desire for that which is material. And, if you think about Hitler with his very strong Taurian tendencies, and you think about the Capricorn moon, which showed itself predominantly in many of the Nazis that were gathered around him, that unholy gang, that leading group. Philip Lindsay did do a good analysis about the appearance of the Capricorn moon. And as we know, the Capricorn rules in many ways the best of people, and in many ways the worst of people as well. So the Axis nations need to understand the teachings of the Buddha. All right, that's enough for us, and that is interesting. I hadn't remembered that, and basically we have many selfish people in government today that are there to enrich themselves, and they seem a long way from being able to understand what the Buddha taught, but that is the antidote, that what they are grasping for, rush not from point to point, nor be deceived by that which is unreal and passes away. That's in almost those words in some advice given to the materialistic third ray type. And basically, it's all about you're suffering because your desires are for what is unreal. Give up those lower desires, and you will be released, and you will be happy. Okay. And Masamori said, well, if a simple soul comes to you and says, well, what's this Agni Yoga teaching all about? You just tell them its purpose is that you may be happy. He's so practical in that. So the Axis nations and the stream of behavior that still follows on from their rapacious desires to own and grasp the resources of others, those tendencies have to be counteracted by the teachings of the Buddha. Now, let's see what else. Bringing home to the nations, the world, the truths. So first the Buddha, and then the United Nations. And these are, the so-called allies of that war, and still there are allies today who see with a keener eye and a deeper sense of spiritual values. The United Nations need to learn to apply the law of love as enunciated in the life of the Christ, the 11th commandment, so to speak, and to express the truth that no man liveth unto himself, and no nation either. Now that, this America first and all this nonsense, who's first? It has to be humanity first at our stage of evolution. And to express the truth that no man liveth unto himself, and no nation either, and that the goal of all human effort is loving understanding, a great second ray virtue, and very related to the idea of Maitreya, love and understanding, prompted by a program of love for the whole. So the whole thing is of importance. The whole thing. The law of love as enunciated in the life of the Christ. The law of love systemically is actually the sixth law, and I suppose is related to the sixth ray, but it also has to do with the law of attraction. So let's see here if we can bring this out, and we'll try to put it in the color blue, you know, which is unfortunately too dark, but at least the symbolism is there. The law of love as enunciated in the life of the Christ. And this has to do with how we have to live also. We live, let's just say, we must live, okay, must live the life of right human relations. And it's much easier said than done, but, you know, we have a teacher, Master DK, whose ashram, the keynote of his ashram is right human relations. I was so, you know, in a way surprised when I saw that. I mean, certainly he talks about it, no question about that. But he, you know, delivers such teaching. But he's very versatile. You know, he can do all those things. He can deliver a great and meticulous teaching, yes. But the keynote of his ashram is right human relations. Now, if the lives and teachings of these two great avatars, you know, descending to our level with no hope of gain for themselves, inevitably it happens, of course, but they don't need it. They don't need to do it, you know. The solar angels still have part of their program which requires their supervision of a human being, but not these avatars. If the lives and teachings of these two great avatars can be comprehended and wrought out anew in the lives of men today, because, you know, they've been around a long time, but we need a new presentation of what they're really bringing, wrought out in the lives of men today, in the world of human affairs, in the realm of human thinking, and in the arena of daily living. The present world order, which is today largely disorder, can be so modified and changed that a new world and a new race of men can gradually come into being. Renunciation and the use of the sacrificial will should be, and let us say that both of these teachers used these methods, should be the keynote for the interim period after the war. Now we're ending that period now in a way, and prior to the inauguration of the New Age, but we could say that still for almost another 100 years, the New Age will not be technically inaugurated. By the year 2117, and there is, interestingly, the transit of the planet Venus again across the face of the sun. That will also be the entrance of the vernal equinox into the last degree of Aquarius, because it goes what we would say backwards, you know. There's a regression going on. And then the New Age will technically and astronomically and astrologically begin. So, yeah, this is what is required, that we adhere to the teachings of the great avatars of the East and West, the great world teachers of the present era, and present anew, wrought out anew, work out anew in the lives of people. Yes, then we will have the new world we all long for. And, you know, in our coming incarnations, we will be workers in preparation for the ongoing development, which will lead to a great age of brotherhood. Students need to, so basically what we've just done, we have looked at 5 points which help servers fight on the side of the angel of the presence for humanity. Yeah, that's what we have done, and the bringing home the truths of the Buddha and the Christ, releasing the new life into the planet, which will allow for the complete defeat of those negative powers of personality which were emphasized by the Axis. And fascism again is rising and emphasizing those negative points. So we individually and the collective have to do that. And then there are the 3 energies which dispel, dissipate, and disperse. Okay. So, well, wait a second here. Yeah, we'll just say there follow a description of 3 energies which dispel, dissipate, and disperse. Yeah, and those 3 will help us fight the fight with the on behalf of the angel in a better way. Then I'm going backwards, obviously here. Then the educational discriminations that we have to help humanity recognize and absorb. And one more point, basically look at world conditions and be confident that the forces of light can, because of the conditions that we produce, overcome the forces of evil. So therefore, ask yourself, am I fighting the battle? Am I engaged in helping the angel of the presence of humanity to overcome its dweller? And if I'm doing that, how am I doing so? That's what we have to assure ourselves of, that we are engaged properly in helping to win this war, which is still going on internally. It's not a shooting war. There are many outbreaks of shooting wars, but it's not like a world war, except that it is like a world war internally, psychologically. And we have to be on the right side and skillfully using what we know. Mistakes will be made. I was talking to someone today whose country, he holds great resentment. His country had been destroyed by NATO forces, he said. My beautiful country, destroyed by the United States and NATO. And this all goes back to Bosnia and Serbia, one representing the Christian approach, the other representing the Muslim approach, and the battle was on. And it's left a lot of scars in people who participated in that very cruel and religious war, basically. Religious war. We can only imagine if there were a religious war to break out all over the world, because he warns us, if there is another war, it will be in the Department of Religion, and Shambhala will, for the first time, be involved. So this is something we really must avoid at all costs. Students need to remember that all manifestations in every point of crisis are symbolized by the ancient symbol of a point within a circle, and focus, the focus of power within a sphere of influence or aura. And so it is today, with the entire problem of ending world glamour and illusion, which fundamentally lie behind the present acute situation and world catastrophe. And basically, we're certainly in the trail of those energies which were outwardly catastrophic. The possibility of such a dispelling and dissipation is definitely centered in the two avatars, the Buddha and the Christ. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to deal with in terms of the reading, and what I'll do, I'll read this other one again after I slide down our orienting point. Of course, really, I rely upon the communications group to know where we are. I sometimes get the numbers correct, sometimes. But with the help of Michael and Joe and BL, it will all come out correctly. We're moving along in this precious little book, and it is a book of real training for the divine observers, the observers of reality, and certainly we want that kind of result. So yes?
Michael, you need to move that down below the paragraph.
Yeah,
it
doesn't do it. It doesn't do it. Doesn't do it.
No, you read the following paragraph.
Yeah, but I'm going to read it again next time. That's why I did it that way. Sometimes in our segue, we just need to read something more than once, wouldn't you say? I think sometimes we do. So anyway, 159, reading 99, that's where we're ending. And what page are we on here? Whatever. Sorry, 160.
We are 166.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Okay, and then we'll start here, and we'll begin on the, see now, this is not the 11th of September. This is the 18th already. So we'll start on the 25th. And it will be a morning meeting. Morning. MOURNING. Okay. And it will be program 160, correct? I believe so. And it will be reading 100. And we are on 166. And we'll see how far it goes, The point is not to blitz through all these things, but somehow to absorb them so that many things become to us second nature. Now, we can't be in all the seed groups simultaneously, except in the spirit of the thing, We endorse all these 10 seed groups, but we are fit mostly for one or two of them. And we have to learn what we are fit for. And, oftentimes education comes in, and healing and religion and, sort of the soft line approach rather than specifically active politics or active economics, or active science. I mean, we endorse them with our heart and mind, but the students of Master DK are mostly, at the present time at least, it will continue until the year 2200. So let's see how it goes. Okay. Sometimes people just kind of call me out of the blue, and I just have to dismiss them because it's in the middle of something. Okay, so the glamour dissipation group the healing group, the education group, the political sympathies. Of course, we have that, but very few of us are active in any kind of legislative or judicial body. The New World Religion group, yes, we're active. The science group, maybe some people have some interest, strong interest, but generally the students of DK are not involved in that. He even says, look, if I'll need the advice of a fifth ray master here, and I can always get that. But he consults them, and Alice Bailey herself didn't have the scientific know-how to take down what he might have imparted along the fifth ray line. The psychology group, yes, because these are the academic theosophical types. Economics, of course, we have to help solve that problem, but very few of us are economists. And then finally, there will be the magical group, but that doesn't come for a while. And that will take from all the different areas, it will take 3 people from each one of the other groups. And so there will be a total of 27. Interestingly enough, that's the exact numbering of an advanced school. 3 advanced teachers and 24, number of Shambhala, advanced students. So 27 is important. Comes up to a 9, ends a cycle. So anyway, we have to know where we belong. We can have sympathy with everything. We can help with everything in our mind. But there's going to be 1 or 2 areas in which we have a specific responsibility. And I would just say, when you think about the kind of educational work that has to be done, there's a big educational push at the moment, and humanity's consciousness is largely uneducated in the assimilable aspects of the ageless wisdom. We would not expect that they could absorb everything. No, of course not. But there are certain assimilable features of the wisdom which would make a very big difference. I remember talking to a person who was really, of the evangelical born-again type, and I emphasized, well, look, Jesus said that I'm speaking to the people in parables, okay? But to you, I'm speaking of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. What's the difference? Have you thought about the difference between the parables and the actual secrets that he imparted to his disciples? And that gave the person a pause to reflect and, to help build still a little more of the span of the bridge towards a more accurate understanding of the truths behind the parables. So there are ways to communicate these things that do not put off the listener. And somehow, of course, maybe person to person is the best way to do it. But we have to gain some kind of skill in presenting our subject so that it is not off-putting, even to those with very strong thought forms, but it finds an inroad and can help to slowly weaken the rigidities of orthodoxy. And then we'll be really doing something along the educational line if we can do that. Okay, friends, so that's we'll pick this up next time, and with this paragraph that we'll use as a segue, and we will discuss it. The point within the circle is a great symbol of the solar logos and of the master and even of the universe. It is bounded, we live in a bounded universe, but what causes the boundedness is a form of self-perception. But that's another class, and that's another kind of presentation from our Identify as Being group. So if you would be so kind then, and if you have something to say, great, and or if you have something to ask or write or whatever, and Michael will, detect you, and then we can give it a shot. Okay.
Well, first, Yvonne asked if we could review the Four Noble Truths, and then Olivia's hand is raised.
Okay, well, then one of them is maybe foundational, the first one in the books. So let's see if we can find that, and then we'll get into what Olivia has to say here. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the cause of suffering and the cessation of suffering. And then it ends with the Noble Eightfold Path. So let's just see here. Four Noble, the Four Moodle Truths. Okay. Oh, there's 20 of them. Okay. So. Let's see. This looks like we're in that area. But maybe we'll. Okay, here it is. And he presents it in different ways, But number one, that the existence of the phenomenal universe, and that's, the dense physical body of our planetary logos, let us say, is inseparable from suffering and from sorrow. So that's number one. Number two, that the cause of suffering is desire for existence in the world of phenomena. You know how we hang on, and one of the great Buddhist dicta is to let go. So we're hanging on to that which passes away. We're hanging on to the ephemeral. Number three, that the cessation of suffering is brought about by eradicating all desire for existence in the universe of phenomena. And there's the great work. And the way to the cessation of suffering, or let's just say the eradication of desire for that which passes, is by treading the noble. I think the word arhat, has to do with nobility. Arya, arhat, the noble eightfold path, wherein are expressed, and then they're given in different ways in different translations, but right belief, right intentions, right speech, right actions, right living, right endeavor, right mindedness, and right concentration. There are different ways that these are presented, and if we want to sometimes study the presentation of the Eightfold Path, that's a huge curriculum in Buddhism, but we could do that. And so there they are, page 14 and 15, and from Bethlehem to Calvary. And there are other places where they are found. Right in our Glamour book, we actually, I think they're found there as well. Four Noble Truths, and then it's given in his in a speech by the Buddha, apparently. And here they are, and they're a little bit different here on page 21 in the reappearance of the Christ. Right values, right speech, right modes of living, right thinking, right aspiration, right conduct, right effort, right rapture or happiness. These are expressed in different words, but if you examine them, I'm sure you will find the necessary parallels. So that's the foundation. We're desiring wrongly when we're desiring the wrong things. And we are dooming ourselves to unhappiness because we are desiring what passes away. Inevitably, whatever aggregates, de-aggregates. And as long as we hold on to the aggregation rather than the beingness of the aggregation, or maybe what he calls the suchness of these aggregations, then we doom ourselves to unhappiness. And maybe there's other expressions. This subject has been written on voluminously, and basically all we have to do is know the basics here and then square our life against them. We all fall down somewhere here, but we can improve until we do correctly. Okay. Okay. What else? Anything else?
Uh,
Michael, hi.
Olivia, there you are.
This is Olivia. Yes. Well, the glamour comments and readings today are so timely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, we've been focused on the presidential election of the U.S. presidential election because it'll affect the world.
Mm.
And there's 46 days until Election Day. But I wanted to say it's really important to know that there's early voting that has begun now in 4 states and many more to come. And we saw on TV today people lined up in Fairfax, Virginia, huge lines of people lined up eager to vote.
Mm.
So with that in mind, you know, our work really to reach voters with the light of truth can begin right now because they're voting right now.
Right.
And so one of the things, you know, we know that Trump tells these outrageous lies and his followers really don't care. They're going to vote for him no matter what. So it's the undecided voters, the swing voters, that we have an opportunity to shine the light of truth we've been talking about and invoke their innate goodness, you know, and then leave them free to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I think we all can do. We can think truth as an antidote. And when we think truth, I think it's important to put everything in a positive way because energy follows thought. So we don't think of the lies that we've heard or get upset about that because we'll just energize it. But we can think the truth, you know, such as we need a president who is honest and cares about everyone and will bring people together, and that this will be a good president for all of us. Whatever we think, should put it in a positive way, and that we care about everyone in the world and not just our own country or our own group or us. And also just general truth like COVID is dangerous for everyone and we need to wear masks, you know. So then we don't even get into all the negative lies. We just say a positive statement, or climate change is real, for example, you know, and we must do all we can to prevent that. So I think if we can do these positive things daily, and this is something we all can do, then we provide truth and light as this antidote for what's going on.
Yes,
and I think everyone's really encouraged to do that because, as I say, people are actually voting right now.
Yes,
and
that's correct.
We can have that impact.
I know here from Europe, a number of us are involved voting right now, you know, just to make sure that things get in. And from Raja Yoga, basically, you know, you're enunciating a principle that when a thought contrary to yoga arises, we substitute for it a thought contrary to the contrary thoughts. And that is really, you know, to recognize where is the negativity and substitute properly for it something that will be appealing in the right way. Well, everybody will have their own method to do it, of course. The point is we have to do it. So
yeah, and that everybody can do it, you know, and it's really going to affect the world what the outcome is. So we all have an opportunity to help do something very important. And then I think we talked about a couple of times ago about also adding protection for Joe
Yes.
Biden
Yes.
and Kamala Harris, because, you know, we know that there are radical criminal elements involved. I mean, people and countries even who would do violence or anything to win. So keeping protection around Joe Biden
Yeah.
and Kamala is really important and helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, obviously the invoking of the angel for each one of these people is part of that, because it stimulates all that is good and all that is right. So yes, we each in our own way, you know, and to bring the protection in through visualization, you know, that we can visualize together, and we can visualize in our own way. But as long as we apply ourselves, we must do that. Yeah, well, thank you, Livy, for that reminder. Yes, and it's a good thing too about this early voting that it has started, and well, they say that most people have really made up their minds so far. There are some persuadable people in the middle of it all, you know, leaning one way or another, perhaps, but there's some pretty rigid tendencies at this point. They are strong tendencies, and if there's not a lot of cheating going on, it favors the humanitarianism of the Democratic ticket. But of course, we will see all kinds of shenanigans, and that's one of the reasons we're going to be meditating on manipulation again today in our meditation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Libby. Okay. What have we here? Tia and Yvonne.
And Tia's hand is raised.
Yeah.
Tia, you're self-muted. There you
Um,
go.
of course, I've snuck out to make this comment, but I am listening in. And I just wanted to piggyback on Olivia's statement. And I think it was kind of my thought process was kind of sent in this direction by the recordings that Michael has been sending out this week for letters on occult meditation and the topic of the Brothers of Darkness. And I know it's a topic that we don't like to discuss, or an area that we often don't like to look. But one of the things I wanted to say is that one of the things that distinguishes them for us who are light workers in embodiment is really intensity. They are relentless in their work. And so we tend to be cyclical. And sometimes we're overwhelmed and our intensity waxes and wanes. I will tell you just from my experiences that the people who put the current president in office have never let up on their intensity. And so I invite my brothers and sisters who are co-workers of the light with me to increase your intensity and to maintain it. Nothing is a done deal. I don't think that any of us should relax. Even after the votes are in, can we relax? Because
Correct.
I'm not even sure if they will be accepted. And so I just wanted to add that as a caveat, that that's something that we should keep in mind.
Yes, it's well said, and it's true. This whole thing is going to play out, and it's not settled before there is Inauguration Day, provided there's no attempt to defer that day or have some sort of pitched battle over that day. So, you know, in other words, the completion of the election, in one way, is phase one of the attack. I mean, everything is being done right now to cheat and to steal and to suppress. But even after the votes are in, the counting and what is done with the counting and how it is represented is another area of danger. We have to keep our point of tension steady. And well, you know, maybe you're right about the brotherhood under the Christ. It does work with the spiral cyclic motion, and maybe not with the unrelenting tendency of the first ray, which is so much connected with the brotherhood of darkness. They are largely first ray souls and third ray monads. So they have that driving power, and we have to lift ourselves to a higher and more consistent point of tension during these dangerous days ahead. I appreciate that, you know, you remind us of this point. Thanks to you. Okay, I'm kind of looking at the maybe, you know, on the screen you don't see the list of questions that I have on the screen, do you? Or do you?
I've responded to several questions.
Okay.
And,
okay. Yeah, and I took care of that sweep and weep and all that.
Right.
Yeah, I took care of that.
Jan has written now, considering the word manipulation, is working towards any wished for result a form of manipulation, even those working for the good of all? In terms of definition, how is this woven in?
The factor, you know, let's look at the ordinary mantram of Scorpio. Let Maya flourish and deception rule. Manipulation is done in a non-straightforward way. It is done deceptively, and it works from outside to the inside, and it seeks to force a result which is most often not in line with the true will of the one who is being manipulated. Of course, we work for changes of effect, but Master Moria tells us we are never allowed to hit the center of will. We cannot compel. We cannot force the will. But those who manipulate are arranging everything so that circumstances, including the statements of many people and their misrepresentations, actually do force the will of others in a deceptive manner. The factor of deception is a very strong indicator of manipulation, so the people hardly know what's happened to them, and they're fed wrong information. Their circumstances around them are set up so they are compelled to move in a certain direction. They don't get the correct information because through manipulation, the correct information is withheld, or they get distorted information, which through manipulation is engineered, or, you know, they pretend to be what they are not. You know, there are these trolls that look for legitimacy, and they have a kind of a fake, I guess, you know, I hate to use that word these days, but a fake persona, and they hide behind real people, and they are manipulating opinion because they are not seen for who they are through their deception. So there are quite a few differences between working for the result you want, which can be done through education and persuasion, and that is legitimate, and the silent, deceptive rearrangement of communication and circumstances in such a way that people, hardly knowing it themselves, are forced towards conclusions that defy their own will if they but knew better. So I think we can find, you know, important differentiations between manipulating others, knowing what works, knowing what triggers other people, and actually being truthful about what the circumstances are and letting them decide for themselves. Okay,
And Jan says thank you, but asks, so is the form of deception that rules? Or is it the form of deception that rules?
Is the form of deception. Let's just say that deception usually accompanies manipulation. And manipulation means following an unworthy arrangement. In other words, there are arrangements which are archetypal, and you engineer circumstances so the truth comes through. With manipulation, you distort, you withhold, you overemphasize, you underemphasize, you hide, you basically create an atmosphere in which truth cannot enter. So the two go together. I think that's all I could say about that. Let Maya flourish and deception rule. And we know, Mercury, in its early expression, is the god of thieves. We're stealing something through these manipulations. We're stealing the will of the other. That is just not allowed. You cannot, as a matter of fact, hierarchy is constrained not to manipulate. They could decide things immediately, and they could pull strings, as it's called, but they say, if we did that, you, humanity, would learn nothing. So it's for our own good that the truth, that they stand for the truth rather than to deceive us through and to make impossible. Here's an example. You take away 710 rapid mail sorting machines, and you don't allow them to be plugged in if they're unplugged. Now that is clearly a manipulation. It is done under the guise of cost cutting, but why now? And making the post office more efficient, but we all know the reason for it. And so the true reason is hidden, and the circumstances engineered make it much more likely that votes cannot be counted, cannot reach the counters in time. It is a manipulation, and there are many more. There's just so many today, around this idea of a rushed vaccine, which is unproven. Many lies are strictly for the purpose of manipulation, and we know in the present White House we have a lie factory almost. That is what is being generated. A constant misleading information, and basically it joins in not only with the manipulator of souls, but with the second ray factor, the deluder of souls. Not yet the destroyer, that's different. And yet when you hold rallies where thousands are exposed to the virus and many will die, the destroyer of souls enters as well. The people who capitulate, who give in to their dweller, become one of those three or maybe more together. The destroyer of souls, the deluder of souls, the manipulator of souls. Always working from the outside in and forcing the will against the law of freedom on Sirius. Okay, let's go on.
I am seeing no more questions or comments in the chat box.
What about Heike? Heike. Isn't she there? The truth of suffering, dukkha?
Oh, I put her comment into the chat box for everyone. You went through the Four Noble Truths.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Okay, so I see. Yeah, so right. Okay, so she's presenting presenting that. Good. And giving the either Tibetan or Sanskrit name, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, very good. She has it.
Okay.
And let's see, nothing else. All right. Well, we do have our meditation. And if the weep and sweep, I'm going to try to remember that one. That's pretty good. Okay. And all right, there's something interesting here as well. Yeah, there was something today about white when they make. Yeah, right. Maybe it was Make America White Again. I'm not sure, but a reversion to the old strictly masculine white man values. Well, that time has passed, and there is a resurgence of that all over the world. And the amazing thing is when people do not understand themselves psychologically, they are projecting on everybody else what is the content of their own psyche. And because they are projecting, everything rather horrific within them is seen as belonging to other people. We are in a storm of projection at this time, psychologically considered. And it's kind of interesting, well, like Olivia said, and it's so true, that basically we have an election here. It's a U.S. election, but it has world implications, definitely. So, we have a situation in which the Lion King, you might say, the there is a storm of projected ideas until people just don't know what it is that's in them and what is in the other, and they are badly, badly misled. The United States will be one of the major centers for the development of the new psychology. It's under it's under the sway of a fourth ray master. I think his name is Apollodorus, and his location is not given, okay? But it's a fourth ray development, and it is so utterly needed because this lack of psychology that is often found on the third ray and the sixth ray, unfortunately, is causing great misunderstandings between people when there could be bridges built, and when there could be trust, and there could be an understanding of the higher motives of the higher of the pairs of opposites. These things could exist, but due to our ignorance of psychology, the new psychology for which we are also responsible, spreading that knowledge, due to our ignorance of that, we live in a benighted situation when it comes to self-understanding, and we may even believe, and probably do, some of the wild projections that we put on others. This is not a psychologically honest election, especially from a certain perspective. So basically, the contrast between the great second ray of love wisdom, which is the major ray of the solar system and of the emerging soul of our planet, is contrasted with the last hurrah, the recrudescence of the outgoing sixth ray, mostly in its negative aspect. And that particular battle has world implications because of the kinds of experience of the people who are involved. For some people, it makes no difference how you get there. The end justifies the means. You can use all kinds of fallacious means to achieve your end. For other people, their spiritual values are such that they will not venture into constant lying, distortion, misrepresentation in order to achieve their goals, because they negate their goals by the very means that they would use, which would be dishonest. So it's a big test for all of humanity, and at the present time it's focused in an area that replicates the rays of the Christ. Now this is very interesting. DK tells us the Christ, second ray soul, sixth ray personality, first ray mind, and then add to that the second ray astral and the seventh ray physical, obviously, because he has the perfectly coordinated endocrine system, completely balanced on the seventh ray, and he is Libra, the Prince of Peace, so there is your balance. The two rays that are battling in humanity right now with the focus in the United States are the second and the sixth ray, the rays of the Christ and the rays of the soul and personality of the United States, which has a major planetary sixth ray center in it, which is New York. From a planetary perspective, the sixth ray is the energy that is coming from New York. In other ways, as a city, it's the second and third rays. But, okay, this battle has consequences for the degree to which the heart will prevail over the solar plexus. If it does, and if it doesn't, we're all in real trouble for a while. And he warns us, and he's not speaking lightly because he doesn't exaggerate. He says much suffering lies in store for that great people he calls, he calls them the U.S. Much suffering lies in store. And already we can see with the social unrest and the possible fighting of another civil war in a more guerrilla-like fashion, we can see some of the elements of that suffering, and also the ability of the chief executive to start a war as a great distraction so that the egotistical power may be maintained. It's not a pretty picture, but the Christ said, I come to bring not truth, not peace, but the sword of truthful discrimination. I come to bring not peace, we don't have it, but the sword of the sinuous, which cleaves the line of good from evil. And it's a very difficult, sinuous line, but people have to learn to see clearly what is right and what is wrong, as simple as that. What is of the soul, what is of the personality, what is of the angel of the presence, what is of the dweller on the threshold. And it's blind for so many people, but we have to contribute in our own esoteric way to helping people see these things, including ourselves.
And so, Michael,
Yep.
Last question before we go into the dissipation of glamour meditation.
Yeah.
Jan asks, are we, as a human free will agent, free to use manipulation towards the will for good, not through deception, but through truth?
It wouldn't be manipulation then, because the idea, manipulation is always done hiding the true motive and hiding the means that one is affecting the outer man. So we are not free to use that which disguises the motive and our true objective. We are not free to compel through manipulation on the third ray the will of anyone else. And basically, manipulation is the engineering of the compulsion of the will by sly, intelligent methods. No, we are not free. We would be working against the law of freedom as found on Sirius. But if we want to say, this is what I stand for, let's talk about it. This is my motive. This is really why I want to do what I want to do, and speak in that way on the level to the person or group in which we seek to see change. That is not manipulation. That's my opinion anyway, Jan. But we can't do anything underhanded, and so many people do. You don't see what they're doing. They've got a fake deck of cards. They're doing something under the table. You are just the victim, and you think their motive is one thing, and it's really another thing. And you think their means is one thing, and it's really another thing. There's a duplicity, a lie in manipulation. That's the best I can do on that. All right.
So let's go to the meditation.
Onward. Let's see here. Yep, here we go. Well, there in front of us is the key. Devious and constant manipulation. And someone, I think, Tia was talking about the unrelenting intensity of the negative group. So they really operate on the emotional and physical plane with, at first, with greater effect than will the forces of light. But then, DK says that's not really the truth. It's just that the forces of light are constrained to obey the Syrian law. And these evil beings are not so constrained. Of course, they will pay the price, and so will we if we begin to take the left-hand path of selfishness. We will pay the price, but perhaps we will not end up within the, which we say the Lord's, not the Lords of the shining countenance. We will not be in that group. We will be in the darkness with the 6 leaders from the east and the 6 from the west. And that is a huge catastrophe for the development of the soul. All right. So I guess we've done a lot of discussion about manipulation. It is a big problem, and you're going to see a lot of it in the next 56 days, was it, or something like that, under 60 days. And once the votes are in, even if, will come the manipulation of whether they should be allowed. And even if they are allowed, there will come some sort of effort to delegitimize the election itself. Already, the seeds of thought are being cooked and presented in such a way that people's minds are being manipulatively conditioned to believe the falsehood. So we're in for a ride until January, what is it, January 20th? Is that Inauguration Day? The last degree of Capricorn, something like that. And we're in for a real ride, and the world itself, the implications are world implications. So we need the kind of intensity that we have not had before, and we need to live at a constant point of tension of a very positive kind that we have not even yet achieved. So let everybody work on thinking of how it can be for themselves.
And I've just seen that Michael Starcrow has raised his hand and is self-muted.
Okay, Michael, did you want to say something before I launch into this meditation?
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay,
Hello.
we're
I
moving
wanted
towards,
to,
yeah.
what I wanted to do is, I grew up in Silicon Valley, and the idea was work fast and break things, meaning
Ooh.
it doesn't really matter how we get to the end. It only matters that we get there. And so what I'm wondering right now is how willing are we to actually have conversations with the other side? Because, I don't necessarily think Trump is an agent. The Dark Lodge are invisible. They don't put themselves into public arenas to be scrutinized. They put other people there.
I don't think
And so
anybody's talking about that.
at the end of the day, how polarized are we? Because at the end of all this, when it's said and done, if we need to get to that place to beat somebody, does the ends justify the means? Do we get there? We got him. We won. Then what?
Well, I don't think that, okay, it is a big question, and it comes late in the questioning period, so we can't really get into that fully, except to say that there are humanitarian motives and there are selfish motives, and there is a way of discriminating between the two as part of the education that has to be brought. And I'm assuming that the esoterically inclined people who are students of the Tibetan, of that particular theosophical type of esotericism, are working under the Syrian regime of the Cosmic Christ and are not going to stoop to really low, nefarious, the end justifies the means activity. I'm assuming that there are older souls and younger souls, and I'm hoping and thinking that many of the people involved in the esoteric Syrian methods are among the older souls who have some degree of experience to know that the inhumanity to one's fellow man is not allowed. But it is a question we can take up at some point. And what I've seen so far, I know I've been involved in it. I think others are too. There is bridging talk, and there is talk between, people that are willing to meet on that bridge and look at each other's points of view. And this is not to say that there will not be some value in the conservative, truly conservative position. That's not the same as a radical, retrogressive, deliberate selfishness. It's not the same. Conservatism has its place. I think, well, look, it's a big subject. Let's think about when we can take that up. Right now, we have to go forward.
So the additional thing was that, as esotericists, we're looking at the underlying patterns,
right?
What's going on behind the pandemic and what's being pushed forward, what's going on underneath this election, what's going on in the US, and why is there a concerted effort pretty much to light it on fire? It's not necessary. I don't know if it's necessarily a single entity that's choosing that, but what is being formulated on the world stage?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what it is. I'll make it simple because we can't really get into it right now. The United States is the heir to the Piscean sixth ray civilization, which is going, and which is responsible for a withering of the law in the pralaya of that sixth ray Piscean civilization. Now, everything else derives from that. Ancient, old Piscean values have to give way to Aquarian values, and it is painful for many, and that's why the fires are burning. Anyway, it's a big subject. Cannot take it up right now fully, but let's remember what you've talked about, and let's use our esoteric knowledge. We are not esotericists. We are not. We are just students of esotericism. And our present chief executive is not a member of the Black Lodge. He's just a manipulated person, that's all, through his own psychological weaknesses, or the sum total. What did Philip Roth say? Something like the sum total of his accumulated evils. It was a brilliant thing that he just died recently, but there's a quote there. No, the Dark Lodge is hidden, as you say, but they find their peoples, they find their groups, they find their persons, and their methods are subtle. So let's take that up at some time when we can really get into it. It's not a question of there are very fine people on both sides. When you look at conservatives and liberals, you might say, yes, there are very fine people on both sides. When you look at progressives, yes, and those people who exalt personal selfishness, there are not very fine people on both sides. At least their values are completely different. Okay, well, thank you. You know, it opens up a new Pandora's box, and we'll have to get into it when we can, and not before. You know, because it deserves time. It deserves time. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Now, devious and constant manipulation. Okay. That's we really got to understand that word, and we've had a good opportunity today to discuss it ahead of time. So, there are here, you know, approximately almost 40 of us. So we won't name everybody, but we'll act as if everybody, you know, in the group stands together in silence at first. Or maybe we should say sits together, but standing in spiritual being. And we can feel the synergy of the group and the coming togetherness of the group in the soul. So now we use the protective formula and the long arm cross. He calls it the cross of divinity. It's a dangerous area in which to work. Subtle are the dangers. And we say together, as a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point I never move. Trace the light, and as we do that before ourselves individually, a large white cross appears before the group. Now we'll focus the light. We're used to doing this. The light, the dual light of matter and mind, lifting the light of matter from the etheric physical level, the latent and active fires, onto the level of the lower mind, where we think and we reason and we look for the truth through the logical process. We bring the two lights together in our imagination. And we also seek out the light of the soul to recognize it, the light of higher mind, which sheds the light of truth on everything. And we bring down imaginatively the light of the soul and fuse it with the two lesser lights of matter and lower mind. And we get that sense of the very bright light on the mental plane, out of which our beam to detect glamour and dissipate glamour will be extended, will appear. And with the fusion of the lights, we say the mantra followed by the sacred word. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. So this triple light will eventually reveal the light of the intuition, the greater light. And then the group says the formula, accompanied by the visualization that a great searchlight has been created and that light is turned upon the astral plane. Now, how we do this, of course, it's up to every one of us. But there should be the feeling that the light, the beam, the group beam, is released onto the astral plane, where it comes in contact with the various clouds, mists, glamours, veils, distortions, etc. So we say, radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work, and turn the darkness into day. And as we turn that searchlight onto the astral plane, we get a sense of the darkness there to be found, the veiling effect upon the truth, the many distortions preventing a true, sentient, loving response. And then we strengthen our beam by evoking or calling upon and hopefully evoking the spiritual will from the monad through Atma, through the jewel in the lotus, through the synthesis petals, through the sacrifice petal of each circle. The spiritual will is called in, and our beam is strengthened, and we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And then our work is to be done with devious and constant manipulation. We're told that these brothers of darkness fight relentlessly against the efforts of aspirants and disciples. And they seek to be the forces of obstruction by any means that they can be. And our will is taken away from us through the devious and underhanded methods which work upon us from the outside in, which is not allowed under the Syrian law. So we want the will of the people to emerge, and we don't want them fooled or to be fooled. And we use then the words of power, and then we'll enter the silence to approach, however we may, the meaning of these words, which will help us penetrate the glamour, producing its weakening first and then its dissipation. And it will not be allowed then that this disrespect of others conveyed through our manipulation of them continues. We're treating them like objects to be lined up the way we wish, and we are disrespecting their will. Cannot be allowed. And so here are the words of power. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of devious and constant manipulation. We learn straightforwardness, which leads to straight knowledge. We are not crooked. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of devious and constant manipulation. We take away the life of the glamour. And as Hercules learned while kneeling, the Hydra wilts and dies through lack of sustaining vitality. Now, we spend our 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose, and see the work proceeding in the way which seems right and best to us. 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose. And we can use these words of power. We're working in such a way with the activity aspect that we dissipate the tendency to engineer circumstances in a devious manner so that our will is forced upon the will of others. It is not legitimate to hit the center of will by direct means or subtle means. People have to be respected. And even if they disagree, okay, everyone will have elements of disagreement about many things. It is their will, and they cannot be subtly arranged so that their will cannot be done. And that's very different from the way that the Lodge of Darkness works. Very different. So we will sound the Om 3 times and recognize that some little bit of work has been accomplished. We have faith in that because faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. We will withdraw our light from the astral plane, and we will return it to the mental plane and then to the 3 places, soul, mind, and etheric physical nature, where the lights belong, and continue to work upon our individual glamours as well, because that's what makes it possible for us to work upon these group glamours. If we're filled with individual glamour, I don't think we're of much use in the larger perspective. So the 3 Ohms, and then we invite you tomorrow for work in the evening with the destiny of the nations, adding our soul qualities to the developing causal body of our nation, and we'll continue with our study of various major nations. We're working on Italy at the present time with its very powerful 6-ray soul, and Spain before long, I think, and and we've worked with the 3 amalgamative nations, US, UK, and Russia, which really hold the fate of humanity in their hands, says the Tibetan. So, thanks everybody for attending, and we'll try to find some time to talk about how we might talk to what we consider to be the other side. And there's quite a balance there, standing on principle, on the little known esoteric principles, and still able to educate in the major discriminations which are increasingly acquired in the educational program of hierarchy. So it'll be a broadcast tomorrow, not a webinar, at our usual live link on YouTube, and the same later. Let's see. I'm just about winding up, but looks like, Nicole, did you have your hand up? And if you did, you are self-muted. So there's some question we need to answer. Otherwise, we call it a day. And as they say, if you're American, well, vote early, but don't necessarily vote often. You know, that's really unbelievable. Okay, then write either to Michael or me if you have some question that is required. And that will be all for right now, I think. Yes, and let's be vigilant for the appearance of glamour in our own nature and its eradication, and the eradication of glamour through sanctioned esoteric methods according to the Syrian line. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you. And bye-bye.